Hello all you lovely people, and welcome to another Enhanced Edition, where it has become quite apparent at this point that I cannot be stopped, but I must be stopped. Because in addition to all the other things I've panel lined over the past several months, I have also taken it upon myself to panel line Earthrise Lynx. I don't know if it's just perception, or if that's actually how it was. I wasn't really logging stuff, but this felt like it took even longer than Cybertron Primus. There's just so many little details across two different modes. Well, two different robot things that each have their own modes, and like trying to make sure everything went together is... I'm tired just thinking about it. But I did it. I panel lined Lynx in his entirety, or almost his entirety. I will go over a couple of areas that I did not panel line, but this was an undertaking. But he's done now, and he matches Jetfire, so there is that. In terms of the actual process, panel lining is really simple. I just use Tamiya panel lining fluid. I use the black because that's what I've got, but it is available in other colors. It's really simple to use because it just comes in like this little brush dropper thing, and so you shake it up, start dabbing the brush in areas where you want the panel liner to go, and as you can see, when you dab it in, it just kind of flows into the spots where you place it. You might have to dab in a few places to get it to spread around, but you don't actually paint along the details for the most part. You typically just dab it in different places and let gravity and physics do the work. Then once you give all of that time to dry, which it varies how long you want to do it. You want to wait at least, I'd say, like 20 minutes to a half hour, but it might be more beneficial to wait till the next day. But basically I have a Tamiya enamel thinner, which doesn't have to be the Tamiya brand. You can use just any enamel thinner, but it comes in this big bottle, so there's plenty of it. You just get a little bit of the enamel thinner on a, say, Q-tip, and start going along the areas where you dabbed the panel liner in place. And what that'll do is it'll clean up the excess from where you press the brush against the plastic. But because all of these details are sunken in and the panel liner is kind of flowing into those crevices, the enamel thinner should not get into those little crevices and start cleaning out the panel lining stuff that actually went where you want it to go. There is a bit of nuance to it, and most of the time my own impatience leads to things getting a little messy. The key with the enamel thinner is you want to not use too much. Typically what I'll do is I'll just shake the bottle a little bit and then just run the Q-tip on the inside of the cap to get a little bit of the enamel thinner on there. And even then, sometimes I'll blow on the Q-tip to try and get it to dry a little bit. Then I start going over the lines because I don't want to have that fluid get into the cracks, because I don't want to wipe away what went into the cracks. I just want to wipe out what's outside of those cracks. It's overall a very simple process. It's just very time consuming and very tedious. So if this is something that you'd like to try for yourself, you might want to start with something smaller. Just to give you a basic idea, I'm going to go into the more specific stuff when we get into like the individual bits, but to give you a general idea, this is what Lynx looks like when he is combined into his shuttle on top of a shuttle carrier thing. It's a lot of little details. Admittedly, I'm not super into how this looks here. This just kind of feels a little bit busy. What we have going on down here is fine, but like the black panel lining on the predominantly white shuttle feels like a bit much. I probably should have gone with like a lighter gray, but I don't have a lighter gray panel lining option, so I went with the black. Probably could have done it differently, but I feel like it more than makes up for it when we get to Lynx's let's say proper robot mode. But I will acknowledge that just as is right now, it does look like it's a little bit visually confusing. Anyway, let me separate these guys real quick. There we go. And let's start with the less interesting thing, and that is the shuttle carrier mode. It's kind of hard to tell because it's black on dark blue, but I did do panel lining on pretty much everything except the dark gray bits here. In some cases, it is definitely messy, like around these bits here that become the Lynx mode shoulders. But I kind of feel like that adds more of like there's grease and grunginess in this thing feel to it. So I think it's okay. I did not add any panel lining to the silver bits or to the dark gray bits that are on the inside, which we'll see more for like the base mode and stuff, like these ramps and such. I left those alone. Pretty much only did panel lining on the blue, the red, and the white. But you can see that it does make those details stand out a little bit more, ever so slightly with the dark blue. Definitely with the white, definitely with the red. It's kind of a hit and miss with how this experiment ended up turning out. I still feel like it was worth doing. It's just, in hindsight, I probably could have used slightly different colors here and there, maybe not panel line certain things and just left it at that. But again, we will see more detail for that when we get to the animal mode and then the shuttle. This in particular looks like a bit much because it's that black on white and it's just a little bit too dark. I also did the underside, and this is pretty much the only time we're going to be seeing the underside here, but I did do that as well. I like how this came out though, this kind of grid down here. Another thing I wanted to mention too, which it's much harder to see now that there's the panel lining all over things, but there are certain elements of Skylynx that are actually in gray versus white, and that's not because of the panel lining. It's kind of hard to tell in this lighting, but like this area here is like a not darker gray, but it's definitely not white. Or even back here, you can kind of see the difference in tones, where this is kind of like a grayish color. This is definitely a much brighter white. And that's kind of how Skylynx was right out of the box. I did add some visual interest there, and it's much harder to tell when it's got the panel lining on, but the difference in tone is still there. I did also panel line the inside of the shuttle doors. I didn't do all of the gold here, I just did these lines across the middle because I wanted to leave certain things, and also did the stuff going on in the tail fin. I tried to get into the back section here behind these boosters, but I just couldn't. I know you're probably looking at this saying like, well, why didn't you just unscrew the rocket boosters? Because you can do that. There are screws in here. Thing is, I did an experiment. I unscrewed one of them, I believe it was this one, and could not pull this thruster off. It was not coming. I think they're actually glued in place in addition to being screwed down. I didn't want to force it just in case, but yeah, if I had been able to remove these, I would have removed all of them and done the panel lining behind them and then put them back on, but I couldn't get them off. So this section has not been panel lined, but I feel like you don't really notice with everything else going on here. So I think that's all right. But that is how the two individual vehicle modes look on their own. So let's jump ahead to the base mode. Okay, well, here is Skylynx's base mode, and I'll get in closer in a minute here, but I do want to say, I really appreciate the fact that they gave him a base mode, and it actually works. And they really didn't even need to do much to make this work. They just have some fold-out ramps there, these flaps that come out, and like some ramps here, and like that's pretty much it, aside from the molding that allows the shuttle to sort of sit in that little cradle there. But in the base mode, I think the panel lining works out pretty decently. Bringing things in a little closer and getting the shuttle out of the way, because we already looked at the shuttle, I did also do a fair bit of panel lining on the insides of these bits here and inside here. I did not do any of the panel lining on the gray here, because I just thought that the black on the gray wouldn't really work that well, though realistically the black on the dark blue doesn't really work that great either. That was the decision I went with, and also I had to draw the line somewhere because there was so much to panel line on this guy. I know I already said that, but seriously, it was ridiculous. And as you can see, I did also panel line his little blaster, booster, radar dish things, and that also brings out a lot of that molded detail. So yeah, I think it works. You know, these two ended up being a lot larger than I was expecting. They're a bit more tricky to keep on camera than I had anticipated, but we will persevere. So, starting with the bird, it's all the same stuff that was panel lined in the shuttle mode, but now you can see I also did the neck, bird legs, on the inside and on the outside, did these bits up in here, and also the tail. And now it's starting to look a little better. I think having a little bit more than just the white definitely helps in terms of like making that panel lining not look like it's too much. Oh, and I did also panel line the wings on the bottoms and the tops. Though again, the dark blue makes it kind of difficult to see, so good job, Rob. For the Lynx or whatever mode, you can see more of the panel lining that's in there, and along the tails on the underside as well as the top. I did the neck section in here. Did not do the back because of the silver. I actually left the head alone because, again, I wanted to kind of pick a couple of things to intentionally leave without the panel lining. So I did not do any panel lining on the head, but I think it's fine. I think it stands out enough for what it is. And that is it for the individual modes, so let's mush them together. What do you say? And here we have Lynx in his absolutely glorious combined mode. Even without the panel lining, this figure has been an absolute treat. I did actually used to own the original G1 Lynx back in the day, and that thing was just as ridiculous as this, but far less posable. Also easier to transform in some ways, but this is really cool. I like how you can reposition the wings, so it gives you much more options with regards to where you might want the wings to sit on the body. So you could have them further back, further forward. You can move the neck around a lot. The tail has a bit more posability, though I do wish the tail could either swivel or bend left or right. Aside from just moving the tip around, I feel like that would have been really nice. But still, you can get some really great expressive poses out of this, and this is where I think the panel lining really comes into its own, because like I said, the individual modes, especially with the shuttle, it looks a bit much, just having all that black on white, and it doesn't show up as well with the dark blue, especially in this lighting. But when he's completely combined and transformed into his actual proper Lynx mode, and you can see more of that detail in the red and more of the white and some of the blue down here and stuff, like it all comes together much more nicely. As I said, this was a project that took a while, but I think it was worth doing. But that is going to do it for Earthrise Lynx and his panel lining. Hopefully this is somewhat informative, either in how to do panel lining, or it'll answer the question of what Lynx looks like when he's been panel lined. Feel free to let me know what you all think down in the comments. I always enjoy hearing from you all, and please stay fabulous. The competition is fierce, but I know you all can do it.